What's going on, fight fans? I'm back here with another video here set for you guys. Going to be talking about my recap and reaction of UFC 308, and damn, what a fantastic card this was. I mean, honestly, from top to bottom, we got entertainment, violence, and blood galore. But unfortunately, we're going to start off with the robbery of the year. Rinat Fakirtidov versus Carlos Leal. In my prediction video, I had Nursultan Ruzaboyev, who pulled out of the fight. I didn't take that into consideration. And just by looking at this picture, the only person happy is the ref. Fakirtinov looks like whatever, and Liao is absolutely beside himself, man. What a damn shame. El Mohammadi he is a name on this that's a ref that's like judging this card, and honestly, man, what a disgrace. Lial in his UFC debut on late notice, chucking off Rinat every single time Rinat tries to get a takedown and getting outpointed on the feet. Lial deserved this win. He needed this win, but we're in Abu Dhabi, and those type of guys win for a reason. Moving on up the card, we had Ismail Nurmagomedov versus Bruno Silva, and this is just was a technical beatdown wherever we're going to be. Ishmael was really good. His striking was really crisp, especially against Bruno Silva. Getting down takedowns and pretty much just beating up Bruno Silva this entire fight that was going on. Bruno Silva just literally looked like he was out there to get a paycheck, get that check and run out of Dodge. I don't blame him, but at the same time, Ismail Nurmagomedov is really good, especially in the middleweight division. Could potentially build some type of more names onto his record and resume. Moving on up the card, we had Farid Basharat versus Victor Hugo. Basharat in the first two rounds, in my opinion, clearly beat Victor Hugo, especially on the feet, while Hugo definitely had the power advantage and was swinging very hard. He was swinging and missing a lot, and Farid Basharat made him pay a lot with a lot of counters, crisp and short, a lot of speed with his shots, and mixed up the variety. But in the third round, it looked like Hugo was landing some hard and powerful shots, definitely getting to Farid, but Farid took it to the ground, slowed the pace down, and Victor Hugo did have his moments. It did look good, especially powerful, but Farid Basharat definitely won this fight. Oh my God, look at this fat bastard on my screen. Chris Barnett, man. What are you doing, brother? What are you doing in the UFC? Jumping up and down. You're so happy. There's nobody in the crowd yet to cheer for you, brother. And you immediately blow out your leg because you're an obese man trying to fight an athletic, UFC heavyweight, quote unquote. Barnett lost because he jumped up and down and landed on his leg, and he blew out his leg. That's pretty much how he lost. And Kennedy Nzechukwu took advantage of that and took advantage of the fact that he was fighting a fat, portly man going against him. So shout out to Kennedy Nzechukwu getting the job done, or so they say. And moving on up the card, we had Bruno Ferreira versus Abu Magomedov, and I had Bruno Ferreira winning this fight. And while he did look very good and very sharp in the second round, he definitely hurt Abus and did exactly what he needed to do and what I thought he was going to do in the fight between these two guys. Abus looked really good in the first round. He definitely got Bruno's attention in that first round and gave him a lot of respect. That's why he took pretty much the first round off. And then the third round, while after Bruno got that second round clearly to his advantage, hurting Abus, Abus took Bruno down at will, got two takedowns, and really just took control of the rest of the fight and definitely deserved that win. And we move on to the honest, my opinion, fight of the night, or of the day, as we say, because this fight was on Abu Dhabi, and for us Americans, this was a day card for us. Mateusz Rebecki versus Maitek Odobai. I had Odobai winning this fight because he looked really good against Elvis Brenner, and Mateusz Rebecki had one loss coming off again, and this was really going to be, I would believe, a force-fed fight, but it was actually very even and very good and competitive. And Odobai just gets hurt with an overhand right to his eyeball. It swells up like a balloon. It is disgusting to look at, and you're seeing it on your screen as of right now, so you can definitely see how much damage it was done. He gets hurt in the first round, gets dropped, and Rebecki is pretty much doing exactly what he needs to do and what you would think that he would need to do in order to be able to win this fight. And you move on to the second round. Odobai had a lot more success, was able to do a lot more and to push that pace towards Rebecki, but Rebecki again was still landing hard and crisp shots, really, really doing what he was able in order to need to do to win another round. So I had him going 2-0 against Otobai. And Otobai in the third round again gets hurt, but then Rebecca gets cut, and then you see how that's starting to impact his vision. You start to see him starting to get hurt by some of the shots that Otobai was landing. I mean, Otobai, shout out to him, the tough, the gritness, the determination, and the heart and the chin by both of these guys was absolutely tremendous. These two men went to war. And shout out to Otobai. I mean, the split decision on this card I think was horrendous. I think Rebecca absolutely won this fight 2-1, 3-0. You can see that as well. But I think shout out to Otobai, man. He survived woolly mammoths. He survived saber tooth tigers. He survived, dealing and living in 2000 BC, and he just came out there and he did what he wanted to be able to do, but it wasn't enough. I mean, look at that eye. That eye is disgusting. Shout out to Mateus Rebecki for putting on a tremendous performance. And moving on up the card, we had RDA going against Jeff Neal. I predicted Jeff Neal to get a TKO or KO in the second or first round. And this fight was pretty much just a glimpse of what you were going to see in for the rest of the card if you were just seeing it in the moment. It's just the old heads, the old timers, the dudes that have been putting in the work and have the name and have the longevity, have been former champions and all this other stuff. Their career and their age is starting to catch up to them, and it's starting to wind down, and they're out of their prime or getting out of their prime. And RDA, like I said, is an old man. He's tough, he's crafty, he's a veteran, he has experience, but he got pieced up by Jeff Neal for the first round that fight just went. Jeff Neal knocked him down, took him down as well, and RDA's knee just blew out. I think that's a sign for him to be able to consider retirement. Maybe, I wouldn't even say maybe take one or two other fights. I think his career is pretty much over, especially for the cream of the crop. I think it should be done for RDA. Moving on up the card, we had the prelim headliner for Ibo Aslan versus Raphael Circadia. Ebo just ramrodded through this dude, bro. I mean, to me, it seemed like he shut off his lights like 3 or 4 times in that fight. Had him backed up against the cage. Circadia was really looking to counter, get some nice shots going his way towards Ebo, and Ebo just landed a nasty left hook over the top, right on the temple of Ebo, rocked him badly, and it just had him shook all around the world. Moving on up the card for the start of the main card, we had Shera Bullet Magomedov versus Arman Pedrosian. And man, what a fight it was for the first 2 rounds that it was only in. Arman Petrosian, I think, in the first round. I think you could definitely lean towards him in the first round. I can also see a way that you can say Shara won that first round as well. I think in the beginning of that first round, especially kickboxing and Muay Thai terms, Arman definitely had the more volume. He landed a lot more shots. He landed a lot more cleaner shots, especially a lot of freaking leg kicks. I mean, the fact that Shera was able to take and also check most of those kicks was tremendous. A lot of people don't take that into consideration, but I mean, it was nasty. But Shera was definitely landing and countering a lot more shots, powerful shots towards Arman, was landing and hitting Arman a lot more harder than what Arman was hitting him with. And it was just tit for tat, back and forth, just tremendous kickboxing by these two guys. And in the second round, I think you just saw the level up of Shera, just him being a better kickboxer in general, and just he's being in another tier, him getting more comfortable with Arman and the positions that he was in. And while that was happening, you just knew that it was coming towards an end, or it was coming toward a decisive Shara Bullet maybe win. But then he comes in with this video game esque spinning back fist one way, comes spinning back fist the other way, and completely cleans the clock of Arman Pedrosian. Sits his ass down and doesn't take any follow up shots because he looks like he didn't even know where the fuck he was at. So it was a tremendous knockout that Cheryl the Bullet definitely needed for his career to skyrocket and put more oomph and more, hype and clout behind his name. So Cheryl Bullet definitely needed that knockout for himself, and he got it. And the UFC, I know, is definitely happy about that. Moving on up the card, we had Lon Murphy versus Dan Ige. Very, very close, especially with these two guys being in the rankings. In the first round, Dan Ige lands a nasty counter right hand over the top of Lon Murphy, where Lon Murphy was throwing a haymaker of a left hand, left him exposed while throwing so much power into that shot, drops Lon Murphy down, damn near puts him out, but Lon Murphy was able to secure maybe a takedown position, get into positions that way he couldn't be able to get hurt again. But Danny Ige definitely took that round. In the second round, a lot more of what Lon Murphy is and what he's about, taking shots here and there, tit for tat, really making it a point fest, and him doing what he needed to be able to do to take over that round. And the third round was very, very close. I think that Lon Murphy was looking better on the feet at the beginning of that round. Dan Ige then looks for takedowns, gets a takedown, and lays on him for about 2 to 3 minutes, but doesn't really do nothing with it. Doesn't really threaten with submissions or ground and pound or nothing like that. Then Lon Murphy turns the tide, lands in a couple of ground pound shots here and there, then starts threatening with submissions. Nothing crazy, but is doing a lot more than what Dan Ige was doing when he had control and he had positions with the takedown. Gets into a stand up, and they both land a few nice shots here and there, but I think Lon Murphy definitely took over that round and did a lot better work. So I think he's the rightful winner, even though it was a very, very close fight and very, very close third round. Moving on up the card, we had Magomed Ankalaev versus Alexander Rakic. And man, I'm seriously, the disappointment of the card was definitely this fight and Magomed. I expected a lot more out of Magomed. I expected him to be a lot more crisper and a lot better just in general. Alexander Rakic, in my opinion, definitely took the first round and just outpointed him and did more better work. But the last two rounds, I think Magomed did the better work, and he did enough to win the fight, but he didn't do enough to really impress anybody. It was boring. It was not what you wanted to see out of your number one contender in the light heavyweight division that's continuously saying that, your champion Alex Pereira is ducking him. He doesn't want to fight him. He doesn't want to get into any of the case with him. And he puts up that type of performance against somebody that's a top five level light heavyweight against him. And man, that was just, it was embarrassing. You can't really say that he's running away from you. Can't really say that he's afraid or to do anything like that, because if that's your stand up going against Alex Pereira is going to knock the lights off of this guy, and pretty easily. Moving on to the co-main event, we had Robert Whitaker going against Khamzat Chimaev, and Chimaev is a demon. He is a problem, ladies and gentlemen. He is back to form, to where we believe and had the hype and the threat of what Khamzat Chimaev we believe is going to be. He's coming off that lackluster win, quote unquote, against Kamaru Usman, and you have Robert Whitaker on a two-fight winning streak against Paulo Costa. Was a very good and competitive fight, and then the knockout of Ikram Aliskerov. And I predicted Whitaker to get out of the first two rounds, or the first round definitely, which was going to be very, very heavy pressure for Khamzat Chimaev, but Khamzat just shot for that takedown like a maniac, gets it, and he's just controlling Robert and putting him into difficult situations. Not doing a lot of power punching with the ground and pound and stuff like that, but it's threatening with submissions. And a lot of people on social media talk about Robert Whitaker quitting, about Robert Whitaker just tapping so quick because he was scared. He's not a real man. He's a coward. Look at the pictures, ladies and gentlemen, on social media. They're all over to be able to see. Robert Whitaker's jaw was shattered to pieces. Disgusting looking jaw. I mean, I wouldn't even want to. I would tap immediately. Even if my jaw didn't look like that, I would tap immediately the same way that Robert Whitaker did. And Khamzat is a problem, bro. Khamzat in the middleweight division, I don't know. He's going to jump to the number 3 rank. He might even jump past Sean Strickland, who's really the number 1 contender to be able to fight Dricus du Plessis next. But with no damage coming to Khamzat and having that performance against a future Hall of Famer in the UFC of Robert Whitaker, who's beaten tremendous and also has gone against tremendous other fighters as well. I mean, that was just a lot of people were putting on notice with that performance by Khamzat Chimaev. If he does get the championship fight against Rickard Duplessis, it would definitely be a fight that I'm more than wanting to be able to see that. So definitely the championship is next for Chimaev. And we move on to the main event, which was Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. And man, what a hell of a main event it was. Really was tremendous by these two fighters. They put out a tremendous performance. But this fight kind of went the way that I believe that I called it. I called for a fourth round KO, but I did see how this fight was going to go the way that I believe it was going to go. Ilia Topuria points to the ground in the center of the octagon, egging on Max Holloway to be able to show that he's actually real BMF in this MF, but clearly he wasn't going to be goaded into some type of situation like that with Ilia Topuria. And really, he didn't have the range that he needed to be able to get to in the first round. Max was peppering him with a lot of jabs, was throwing a lot of kicks, but not heavy, just throwing kicks out to be able to maintain his range. That I thought that was very, very effective from him. He had a lot of success with a lot of leg kicks early in that first round, Max Holloway did, and was really peppering Ilia Topuria with a lot of nice shots. Ilia looked to be overextending. He just was looking to take Max's head off in the first round. That it happened, and he was really going for what he was gonna say that he was gonna do, and that was knock out Max Holloway in the first round. But he started to simmer himself down, calm himself down, got two takedowns against Max Holloway, who's known for his tremendous takedown defense and how great that is. But he gets him pretty easily, dumps him down, knows that he's able to take Max down, but doesn't have any success with having and keeping Max on the ground because Max gets back, rack it up, and the fight continues to stay on the feet. I think the first round, even though Ilia did have some type of success with him landing some nice and clean shots as well, you did start to see him implement some type of game that Volkanovski had and success against Holloway with landing a lot of leg kicks. I started to chop low and have those leg kicks really, really throwing heavy to really stunt Holloway's movement and footwork. So that was really effective and really good to show by Topuria that he was not just not going there to just throw hands the entire time. He was able to throw some nice league leg kicks to Max Holloway to stunt, again, like I said, the footwork and movement of him. But like I said, the first round I think definitely goes to Max Holloway. I think Holloway had the better boxing, had the better kicks, was able to stave off Ilia Topuria's power and his pressure and him continuously being in his face. And you move on to the second round. In the second round, Ilia started to throw a lot more lead leg kicks. I think Topuria definitely won that round, even though, again, it was really close. Max was landing his jab a lot more, landing those 1-2s, landing his right hand as well. Really, I wouldn't say hurt Topuria, but definitely stunned him a lot of times and stunted him from keeping him from coming forward. Max kept throwing kicks here and there, but wasn't throwing as many as he was in the first round. And the writing was on the wall. As soon as I saw in the second round Ilia start to get his distance, manage his distance and his range a lot better than what he was in the first round, started to close an inch a lot more better. His defense was actually getting a lot good as well. I thought he was getting hit with a lot more cleaner shots in the first round, even though, again, he did get clipped a few times in that second round. I started to notice, and this is how I knew Max Holloway was going to get knocked out in this fight. Max Holloway was doing really good with managing the distance and having his reach and that advantage that he has with keeping shots long with the 1-2s, the straights, and the kicks. He was doing really well. But there were times, and there was a lot of times, that Max Holloway engaged in the pocket with Ilia Topuria. And that was the one thing he did not need to do. If anything, that was the one thing he needed to stray away from. But he kept on just engaging and getting into those exchanges in the pocket where Ilia Topuria thrives in. That's what Ilia Topuria, in his realm, especially with boxing and the boxing that he has and the ability that he has, especially since Max Holloway has the reach advantage over him, he he started to get into these inside the pocket exchanges for God knows what. I mean, maybe for ego, maybe for pride, maybe to show that yeah, my boxing ability and my power is tremendous as well. Get some type of respect from Ilia Topuria. I completely understand that, but that was definitely not what needed to happen, especially in that fight. Then towards the middle and towards the end of the second round, Ilya just continuously started to land these right hands, not having all power on it, not having full throttle power on it, but he started to land and started to land a lot more and a lot more, and he started to find his targets and again find his range. You go into the third round, and what I predicted and what I believe was going to happen, Ilia Topuria finds home that disgustingly nasty right hand on the chin of Max Holloway. Stuns Max Holloway really, really, really bad. Forces him all the way to the cage. You can definitely see for the first time and maybe ever Max Holloway be seriously hurt and in danger. And he backs up to the cage. Ilia starts to throw some nasty shots, especially to the body. That's also another thing that I wanted to say is that in the first round, Ilia was not throwing many shots to the body, but in the second round, he started to implement that more, throwing a lot of right hands and a lot of straights and a lot of hooks to the body. And in the third round, he still kept that up and really mixing up high and lows, really getting Max worried about the body shots as well. But while he has Max hurt back in the third round, he starts to show left hooks to the body, going upstairs, downstairs, not throwing a whole bunch of power into shots, but because Holloway is all covered up, but trying to get Holloway to open up more. Then I guess, regains some type of clarity for Holloway, and a nasty left hook right to the head, right on the chin of Max Holloway, the granite chin that Max Holloway has been displaying for so many years. He finally topples down. He finally goes to the ground and is. I thought he was out as soon as he dropped down. Follow up shots, then to the head of Max Holloway, and Ilia Topuria has done it. He has beat, honestly, two of the best featherweights to ever do it, between Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski, knocking them both out consecutively. Tremendous, tremendous performance by Ilia Topuria. He is the real motherfucking deal. He is the guy, in my opinion, in the UFC, and especially at 145. I don't see many people trying, not even trying. I don't see anybody really beating him. Diego Lopez has a chance because he's wild and has a lot of power in his hands. That would definitely be a nice fight to be able to see, but I think we all favor Ilya in that fight. And for Max, I don't want to see him fight at 145 anymore. He's lost to Volkanovski 3 times already. He just got knocked out for the first time ever in his career by Ilia Topuria. He has a BMF title. He just beat Justin Gaethje at 155. I think it would be very, very smart, very, very good for Max Holloway's career to be able to move up to 155. He's still 32 years old, has a lot left in the tank, even though he's had a lot of wear and tear on his tires, especially in the UFC. Would definitely want to see a fight with him and Dustin. You have fights with him and potentially a rematch against Oliveira. I don't think a match with Islam would be great because I think Islam would potentially do worse or maybe do Max, a lot worse, especially on the ground. Um, but I just want to see Max move up to 155. I think his days in 145 are pretty much over. If he ever gets the rematch, I think the same or even worse is going to happen to him against Topuria. But a tremendous, tremendous card, tremendous main event fight between these two guys. Um, I mean, UFC 308 was tremendous. Like this video if you obviously like this video, you guys. This is getting very long-winded and a long, long video. Try to keep these videos at a minimum with the time. Comment your opinions on how you've seen the card, on some of the cards, especially Rinat, the Rat, getting that disgusting robbery. And also all the other finishes that happened into this fight, man. Uh, again, like I said, comment and subscribe, man. Subscribe because UFC fans, MMA fans, I got this type of content that you always want and you desire consistently and frequently. All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching and peace.